Good morning and welcome back to the Explicit Measures podcast with Tommy and Mike. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Just clipping along. Things have been ramping up for us. I think it's been a slow part of the beginning of the year here for us. Just in general, consulting, traveling. It's been just very busy already, but I'm liking where things are going, and we've had some really interesting conversations around some stuff. I'm excited. This is the week of, this is a recorded episode, so I'm trying to get my weeks configured here. This is the week of Build. So I'm sure there'll be some announcements made at Build for Fabric and Power BI. We are pre-recording this episode because Michael is traveling, so that's my fault here. But stay tuned. We will probably digest more of the Build activities throughout this week, and we will have some more episodes in the future talking about things that are happening at Build.
Wasn't Build the conference that Fabric was actually introduced?
That's a great question, Tommy.
It was. Because we did that live reaction. I'm pretty sure it was in May in the summer.
You might be right about that. Build is supposed to be more like developer centric and very like technical heavy. And one thing that was so I went to Build last year, and some of the presentations just felt a little bit too fluffy for me. It was too salesy. I wanted more like, show me how to do it. Open up code. Write some stuff. Let's show me like what are the new technologies that I should be interested about. I just have a creeping suspicion, Tommy, with all of the effort Microsoft is providing around data agents inside the Microsoft Fabric ecosystem. I mean, you look at what Microsoft is doing. Dude, there's Copilot-y things everywhere. Everything's talking to AI anymore. And I think before we get to our main topic, I'll just have one thought here, and we'll do the news here in a second. I do think there's a level of whenever I'm getting to the point right now where any program I use, any app that's on the web, I'm almost expecting AI to be part of it in some way. And my understanding of what AI can do has really changed my mindset, honestly, Tommy. Like the fact that I can generate images, it can rewrite words, it can rewrite text and things. Anytime I'm inputting text to various parts of programs, I'm just kind of expecting the AI to be there to kind of like rewrite it for me. Like I'll put down my thoughts. But it's an expectation now. And I think maybe this was what Microsoft saw early on by throwing Copilot at everything, because every other program out there is going to do the same thing. And now here we are. If you have a product that doesn't have an AI in it, you're now behind.
Let me do you one better here. I think not only do we expect that, but Mike, I think we expect it to have some level of a talent or some level of output that ChatGPT has. I'll give you an example. Yeah, every tool has it. That's an expectation. But I use Confluence, build a lot of spaces for clients, and they have an AI agent tool.
Of course they do. Yep.
I don't use it. I use ChatGPT in my other tooling, and I'll put into Confluence, even though it has a tool, because just because you have an AI tool doesn't mean it's going to be used, kind of thing. So I'm 100% with you. And honestly, I'm not going to be impressed in Microsoft Build unless Arun's a data agent. Everything that's said is the data agent Arun kind of thing. So that's going to be where I'm going to be the most impressed.
Yeah, we'll see what Arun kind of comes out here. So I'm not sure what his analysis will be. I don't really know, but I just feel like we're at a tipping point right now where there is so many rich tools. So I feel like also in my mind, the idea of a single agent or a single AI to do everything is not what I thought that was going to do initially. I'm thinking now, probably not. Probably there's going to be multiple agents that are doing multiple different things. And I think it's going to be more important for us to get access to a large library of multiple agents holistically, as opposed to only focusing on, I'm just going to use just the OpenAI one, right? I think each agent or each model out there is going to have its own kind of specialties, and certain ones will do better than others in certain areas.
And we got to be able to customize them. We have to be able to weight them. And I think that's such a huge part now, where that's
true.
Especially for a service for an organization or software as a service. You can't just give me a model or an agent and say that's what the organization is going to use. It has to be custom, regardless if it's the data or the instructions. I think we're just getting to that point now where give me the default, but it's gotta be combed. So anyways, I love that.
Let's get into our main topic for today. I'll just give you the topic here and then we'll hit the news real quick. So our main topic is introducing advanced analytics to organizations. And already I disagree with the title here a little bit. And I think we're going to have a good conversation today. But advanced analytics and how that fits inside your organization. Now, I would maybe argue it's not advanced analytics. Maybe we're talking about data literacy. Maybe that's really the language I'm trying to use around this, a bit softer of a term. Because I really feel like there's people in your organization who know how to use analytics, and there are others who don't quite understand it yet.
Oh, we're gonna have fun with
leveraging.
Okay.
So I think there's an educational. I mean, as a company, as you're being a data driven company, right? If that's what you are, or you're trying to strive to be, I think there are specific actions, trainings, conversations that need to be held to start bringing your team forward to be more analytical. You're not just going to hire people and know they're analytical. They've got to be educated or trained in various ways to then help their minds think about the basic stuff, understand it, and then move on to more advanced analytics or other things. So that's the topic.
I've already got my boxing gloves on for that. So, but Mike,
Awesome.
I realizing in my older age now, this is a scenario for you. I'm realizing, first off, I'm reading books now that you could not pay me 10 years ago to read, where I had no interest in them. I would find it despicable.
You read books?
Now, yeah, like that's
I don't even. I just watch internet.
I just watch internet.
I watch YouTube, and that is my form of. Well, so, you're funny, Tommy, because you say that, but like a lot of the books that people have written, like usually there's like a podcast or some kind of video content around parts of those books, and I'm actually consuming the video side of those content pieces, not actually the book itself.
Well, I mean, but it's entertaining now. I'll give you an example. I read a book about 10 years ago. I would like not even pick it up or walk past. It was the history of oil. Page turner now, 37, where I'm like, no way, General Patton said this. Like, so just weird. I'm reading a book about Jamie Dimon. He is the CEO of JP Chase.
Yes.
And this scenario, there's just a part of the story. I'm like, I need to bring this up to Mike in a data culture. So one of the things that he implemented was every month he insisted from each of his department heads, he got 50 different profit and loss statements, but they were all printed, and he would dive through them as the CEO. And I'm like thinking about this. Well, it's all data, and it could be a paginated report, but the scenario I have for you, you work for Jamie Dimon, and he wants all these printed data, these reports on a monthly basis. Do you push to say, if we have Power BI, hey, all this is available anytime you want in Power BI, just take a look on your iPad or take a look on your laptop? Or do we adhere to the printed side of things? Because the theory with Power BI is, well, printed's a no-no. Like, we don't do printed because we have the data in Power BI. But this goes back into that. But what actually happens in the real world? So that's the scenario for you. You're the data analyst for JP Morgan. Everything's printed. Do you push for this to get actually pushed to Power BI and focus there?
This is interesting, Tommy. So I have a couple of reactions to this one, around this one. So my first inclination is, right, it's a CEO. They're gonna want to do things a certain way. Jamie Dimon is also more seasoned in his years, so because of that, he's just used to seeing things a certain way, right? He wants that physical paper touch. He wants that book of P&L statements, right? But when you look at, I mean, someone who's in the financial industry, you kind of live and die by the profit and loss of what's going on, right? What products are selling well, what products are not selling well, and at the end of the day, the bottom line is: are you making more money than you're than you're losing or you're spending to do the business, right? So, I think this scenario is kind of a special case because if you look at profit and loss statements, they're very not regulated, but they're very consistent, and they have the very same information: money coming in, money going out, money at the end of the day. Like, what does all that look like? And so I think when you are that level of CEO at that top of the echelon, you should not be worried about the minutia of all the little details. You should really be focusing on, okay, what are our goals as a company? And again, at his level, he's interested in making sure shareholder value is continue to go up. So whatever the teams beneath him are investing in, he needs profit and losses on those items. And so he's looking at where are we at right now, and are we marching closer to what our year goals look like? So I think this is a special case because of profit and loss. He's not the one going to be digging into those details. And if one of those profit and loss statements is really off and not doing well, I guarantee you he's not going into, oh, let me drill through to the next page and see the answers. He's going to the individual who owns that area and says, your profit and loss is not where we need to be. This is not going to do us right. Go tell me what's going on. You need to give me more information. So I think he's really trying to figure out across the health of those 50 departments or 50 business units, which department is the one that he needs to focus his attention on. So all that to say, what do we do for Jamie Dimon in this situation? I would also argue here, because the profit and loss and the financial side of things are kind of very known quantities around what is expected. Printed being a no-no, like we don't do that anymore with Power BI. We just build the reports. I'm kind of the opinion, if I worked for him and I had to produce some of these reports, not all of them, but a portion of them, I would for sure go out and build a semantic model. I for sure would have what I would need for the next level of detail down on that profit and loss statement. Maybe build Power BI reports, maybe build some other things, but I would for sure build that profit and loss in a Apache report, and I would just print it out for him.
Yeah.
I'd have that whole sucker automated and just ready to go. I would not be mucking around in Excel. I would have it all ready to go, because that is every month or every week, right? As fast as he needed it, I would make sure I have that information done and ready to go. I have worked in a company that takes the same approach. They would print everything out on green bar and had everything printed, like all of their stuff, like all their sales information would go up to the upper leadership, and they'd have these long printed reports that they would hand, think 150 pages of reporting. And the team beneath that person had to really figure out how to produce this stuff. And there's a lot of waste and checking and making sure things were right at the lower levels, because a lot of it was being done kind of like ad hoc in Excel, all these other things. So we came in and actually modernized a lot by just adding models, semantic models, to aggregate and bring that data up to a higher level. We still gave them printed reports. We still printed out the information, but we were able to then automate more of that. And so to your point, Tommy, right? Depends on how Jamie Dimon is getting these reports. There's something to say for being efficient here and being able to produce that same report every single day of the week,
right?
Or you're producing that report after a week's of work of time for someone to produce the report that you can then go give to Jamie Dimon. So where I think the value here for this is, right, give them what they want, right? I think Power BI is flexible enough to give users paginated reports or pretty interactive reports, depending on your use case. This seems like it's a very specific use case around what they need, but I would focus my attention on automating all of that. Now, the idea here, why I want to automate. I think I want to automate because then I can explore other areas. I could say, let's start doing some waterfall statements. Where in this department are we making more money? What was the trend of things? Are we seeing something change in the interest rates area that's really impacting our bottom line? Like, I would be doing a lot more, like, after I give him the P&L statement, I would do a lot more work to figure out what's the reason why I'm not making my marks, or why am I doing really well, and trying to clearly communicate what that would be. I think as an employee, that's where the real value comes from, is like, you understand your area really well. You have to be able to articulate the why behind that P&L statement.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think perhaps part of this too is unique for Jamie Dimon. First off, if I ever get hired somewhere where my CEO has a biography written about him, I'm not starting until I've read that book.
It's probably a good idea.
That's probably a good idea. But he was a number cruncher, and his big thing was going through and cost cutting, slashing. So I think I really agree with you, because maybe 10 years ago, I would have said, no, we got to push Power BI because that's the data culture. But the thing is, if there is, especially when you're dealing with the C-level, there is something you have to adhere to and say, fine. The big thing here, the big win, is the automation. You can have the conversation with him or with the CEO, go, look,
correct.
I know you want this every month. We can print it out. But guess what? We can do this every week. We have this automated if you give us whatever the resource and budget, because you're obviously looking at this once a month. But do you need it more frequent? Do you need this on a frequent basis? Would you like to search this rather than putting your finger and running through with a highlighter? These are all things that we can work on for you. Have it in the same format you want, because the one thing that you don't want to do, I think, as a data analyst going in anywhere, is trying to, in a sense, be like a bull in a china shop. Like, we're going to change the data culture. And you come in guns blazing because people have an expected format that they've looked at. And kind of goes in our topic too today, where there's a way people know how to look at data. And if you change that drastically, that's going to do more harm than good. So kind of the answer to the question here. Yeah, you're keeping the format. Anything you do would be gradual. Anything that you go has to be an expectation that happens on a gradual basis.
I'm not sure the profit and loss statement is really something where you put a lot of advanced analytics around things anyways. I think that's just kind of, that's also a very historical look on things as well. It's very, here's
very
what
tabular.
Here's today and here's back in time, right? Like that's the historical look at
everyone
things.
knows how to look at a profit and loss, to your point.
Well, it's also very regulated. So this is also where I think regulation comes into place here, because if Jamie Dimon starts lying about his numbers for whatever reason, his costs are not right or his profit isn't correct, and someone's not they're inappropriately out, it's his neck on the line. It's his job. He could go to jail for doing wrong things at that level of the company. So to that end, right, I think this is one of the reasons why you see a lot of the profit and loss thing. It's a known quantity. It's a communicated standard. And everyone in that profit and loss space understands, and this is going to lead into our topic today, there is a certain language. You're communicating with the data, and everyone knows how to talk the same language of that data. So with this, I think we should really transition into our main topic today, which is how do you introduce, and I'm going to call it analytics culture. Tommy's going to call it advanced analytics into your organization. And I think this is going to be a really good topic. So Tommy, let me stop talking here for a bit. Go ahead. Give us some more concept here around what do you mean by introducing advanced analytics to your organization? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, for context, me and Mike were already arguing about this before the podcast started. So I introduced this to Mike and I said, hey, how about this for a topic? How does a BI team get past simple bar charts and line charts to more advanced analytics? Actually, part of this inspiration, Marco Russo wrote an article about Pareto charts and actually introducing more advanced analytics using DAX. But it's like, well, my thought was, how many people are wanting that? How many people are wanting the more advanced analytics, cumulative gain, 6 months rolling, or just custom visuals too, that usually require what I would consider the advanced analytics? And how do we get others to adopt this approach? Mike, you already had an opinion here. It's like, well, I don't call that advanced analytics. That's just a data literacy thing. So I think there's two areas here that we dive into is let's talk about data literacy. And then let's talk about that moving past, because to me, a lot of organizations, man, I mean, they are either living in Excel or they expect and have that same assumption, just like what a profit and loss statement looks like, what a report should look like. And usually those are not what I would, or what you would consider the advanced analytics. I'm not even talking key influencers. I'm just talking, more than your simple volumes, more than simple rates. I'll pause there. I'll let you talk here and just let me get your first take on this.
Well, it's going to be a good episode when Tommy and I start arguing about the episode before we even get on air. And this is going to be a spark. So hopefully we'll fly. So it'll probably be good. Well, let me stand back and say, so I'm going to give you a bit of my past experience of like how I was trained to think analytically about some things. And I think this is a skill that is probably required by more people in your organization. I think the challenge is, how do you get this skill into more people's heads? That's the issue that we're dealing with here, right? So there's a couple of things that I think companies don't emphasize enough on, and some that do emphasize this well, encourage their employees to really create value from their data. Okay. One of them is, I like this idea of being able to have everyone thinking about analytics in a consistent way. One of the things I like looking at is the IBCS standard, International Business Communication Standard. IBCS is the name of the standard, and it's like a nonprofit organization, I think, that has set up this idea of like, here's how we should think about good. So people have studied this. Right. I think a lot of times we build visuals, we build reports, we think you have to come up with everything from scratch. Actually, the answer is no. There's people way smarter than me, way smarter than Tommy, who've already thought about what's the best way to represent year-over-year change. What's the best way to represent comparison? What is the best way to represent a profit and loss statement graphically, right? We don't have to creatively come up with everything from scratch. So one thing is, where do your people go to learn this stuff? Like, what does your company have in place to, if someone desires to go a little bit further above this, where do they go? Do you have a class? Is there something you point people to? Can you run people through IBS certification? I think there's a lot of times we're just given Excel in a company and say, here you go. And then you kind of learn on the fly as you go through things like what is valuable, where's analytics come from. But instead, I think pushing people more through these analytical spaces actually helps people think more critically around their analytics. So one, I'll just kind of point out is, where are you getting your education from? People have built and studied this. IBCS is one place you can do this. Another area that I think businesses are very weak in, I think this plays well into Power BI, is the level of automation of things, right? So even though we're talking about, communicating through analytics, advanced analytics organizations, if you're spending all your time just pushing data between Excel files, when are you having time to spend any kind of effort around learning advanced analytics? I would argue you're going to have less time, regardless, whatever it means, right? You're either going to spend more time outside of work to learn this stuff. You're going to spend more time here. And I like to think of this as a communication standard across two different people. Like if I know how to build this really cool IBCS chart and I give it to you, Tommy, if you can't read the information in there and understand what I've written, then I've failed. I'm talking a different language to you and you don't even understand the language I'm speaking. So to me, there's that exchange there. And then automation is something that we need to put in place here to help people have space to go learn and educate themselves on these things. Those are kind of my two initial points.
So I'm I'm not even trying to. I know when I'm ready to argue when I'm twirling my Surface Pen in my hand. And that is happening at a rapid rate right now. So right off the bat, Mike,
hit me.
This is something, so this is something that I realized very early on. And I don't remember if someone told me this, but it was very apparent to me. As much as I love analytics, and I think both you and I have a warped view, because Mike, you took what was the black belt course you took? I don't remember the name of it, but it was a phenomenal course. Yeah. On that. Yep. And we've also both had our education. We both have our way of looking at data and also understanding the impact of data. Well, here's the reality of the situation. The sales manager, the marketing manager, their job is not to know advanced analytics or to, that's not their education. Their job is focused on their sales reps to meet their quota or to have these campaigns be successful. Data might be a part of that, but their responsibility is not to understand that data literacy or have that advanced analytics by default. You can argue that most organizations should, but my counter to that would be that's such a small percentage of most organizations that have such a healthy data culture. Mike, how many organizations do you walk into that have such a high and mature data culture there? To me, it is very, very low. Most organizations, again, my job as a sales manager or operations manager is the team I manage, the quota I'm supposed to do. Reports may be a part of that, but advanced analytics is not. So with that in mind, Mike, I'm just going to say this advanced analytics thing. And again, I'm going to define it here and we can talk about that first. To me, this definition of advanced analytics, this whole concept here, to me, this is a growth of the normal metrics that one would look at. If I look at my sales quota, and I look at this in a bar chart, advanced analytics is simply looking at maybe a predicted outcome. It's something that's not just the visual itself, which is the cognitive load, but it's a way of looking at that same number. If I look at call rate, if I look at my open rate, whatever that may be, it's something attached to that again is going to take more effort, and it's not part of that standard lexicon of the user. So that is going to be my definition of what we call advanced analytics. It's not just the visual I use, but it's also how we're looking at that same metric. I'm looking at it from a different side of the box. For a lot of teams, you are now breaking their assumption of what a report's supposed to do. Most organizations, and I'm putting a bucket here with most organizations expect a report to show me my number, where I'm at, where I'm going. And that's kind of the default of a report. Anything past that is out of the norm. It's past the expectation. Most people are not going to go, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to discover this. Most people are going to say, no, I want to see this, know this, move on. Advanced analytics, it takes a little more effort. So that being said, Mike, this whole idea with advanced analytics, and maybe you may disagree on my definition. the idea here that we're taking your simple numbers and we're looking at them a different way, or that's going to require a little more effort. How do you see that in organizations, or in a sense, people willing to do that?
So here's I'm gonna go back to your example here. I'm gonna unpack this again. So your example is I've got a sales manager. They're worried about the sales performance of their team, and they're trying to figure out where's the best opportunity for them to spend their time. Right. So I think of this as a problem of optimization in this situation. Right. We have X number of sales representatives selling X number of products. There's two ways you can sell more things. You either take the existing sales team you have and have them sell more, or you hire more salespeople and have them sell more. There's only two solutions to this one. I don't think there's another solution beyond what you have. You have a limited amount of resources on your team. Now, my thinking here around, so using that scenario, I'm thinking about, okay, you define advanced analytics as like something that's maybe more predictive, or something that's not necessarily a bar chart or a line chart. It's something else more complex in nature. And I would argue your statement around that analytics leader or that sales leader of that team, he says, you kind of made the note of, they don't need to know advanced analytics. They just need to identify the outcomes and how they get the job done. Right there, I think, is the miss. I think that's the missing data point here for me, is because even if I can communicate the most elaborate, predictive, cool, interesting report, whatever that may be, let's just imagine, just on theoretically, if this report is so advanced that it basically tells you what to do next, if I can't communicate that information to the person, if they can't read the visuals that are there, I've missed the mark. And so even back to your point here, so, you're saying the word advanced analytics, and this is where I think I sorely disagree with your point on this one. It's not advanced analytics. This is data literacy in your organization. And as us as the team developing and making the information, that could be in multiple forms. But even if it is or isn't in that form factor, I'm looking at it going, it's not predictive. Like if you have just standard KPIs that are being built in front of people, like, again, if they can't understand and interpret what we're trying to give them, you're basically, it's missing. It's all gone. Like the point isn't even being made at that point. So there's a thing so I just feel like I'm trying to communicate numbers, analytical things. And if I don't have that same understanding with that leader, then we've missed the mark. And that's not advanced analytics. That's just data literacy. And that's what we need to cover.
Your point blew me so away that my camera broke. That's how good that point was.
It's like, I'm done. Tommy's
my camera was angry. Like, whoa, kind of thing. Can't handle it. That information couldn't even process my computer. No. So this data literacy thing, and this is where I want to dive into, because I really think you're to me hitting home here. A long time ago in a galaxy far away, we actually had this conversation about data literacy.
Yep.
Do you remember the three things? I wish I remember the author who talked about this, but there are three things that define a good data literacy in an organization. It's the ability for a team to listen to data or read data, to talk about data. Do you remember the last one?
I don't remember.
To argue with data. So this author, the study basically looked at teams and said, if we're going to define a healthy data literacy at an organization, they need those three elements: to read data, to listen to data, to argue with data. So to your point, and this is where I actually do agree with you, regardless if it's advanced analytics or your normal numbers, if you don't have a team who can look at their numbers or look at, regardless if it's a part of pie chart or a spider chart, I don't like whichever one it is. If they don't have that ability to be able to talk with their team about it, or again, argue with it, it's a non-starter. It's a non-starter on whatever you try to do. Now,
but so also, let me just pause you right there real quick. Yeah. I want to drop down on that point that you're making.
Don't break my camera again.
No, I'm trying not to break your camera again. But I agree with you, Tommy. And I think also to your point here in this, right, when we're talking about data literacy around, I can send you information, but even having the same mutual understanding of what is a customer, where do they come from, what do we define as our products? There's some simple understanding of just data literacy elements that if you don't put those in place, the organization just can't figure out, like, you're not going to get anywhere. And so what happens is there is so much data coming in anymore from all the different tools. We have so much data. The challenge has now become, how do you discern which action should I take that is going to drive the right outcomes? There's so much data. So this is where I like your idea with like arguing with data. A lot of times we show up to a data pile of information and say, I have assumptions of what this may mean. And you really do have to approach this with like, where I find this works well for me is approaching data projects like a hypothesis, a test, and then come back with the results. What does that mean? And we were doing a lot of hard things in my corporate job a while ago, where we were really looking at sales of things, and the market would shift. The game would change underneath our feet. Someone would offer a discount. Someone would change a product. Someone would, change the price on something. So it was constantly a game where we're trying to figure out what everyone's doing in the marketplace and figuring out where we fit and where our customers needed to position their products so that everyone gets maximum profit and we sell a lot of these things, right? If you come in with those assumptions, you have to come in, this is my hypothesis, I'm going to test this, and does the data support it? You have to be okay to argue with the data. Yeah. It may be wrong. You may have to adjust your mindset around the data. And if your company doesn't have the culture or the rigor around being able to do this, then it falls apart.
I'm getting goosebumps. This is so good. So I'm going to turn this on its head, Mike, because we're talking about the team not having the data literacy. And I think that really misses the mark here, because here's the problem with that. We think because we have the semantic model and we have the metrics that we have the data literacy. I understand the sales. I understand their member count because I'm the one creating that. I think that's so wrong. That is so far off the mark, because that has no impact on the decision making. Truly. Let me give an example and I'll expand on this.
Disagree. Wholeheartedly disagree, but give me your example and maybe you can convince me.
Organizations on what actually impacts them. And this is what I call the pain points or the pain thresholds. One of the workshops that I do with organizations when we are working on new reports or building their metrics is I asked them, and this was a sales team of a certain region. And I said, we were building their normal sales report and it was basic, the quota. And I asked them, okay, for the next quarter, if you had $1 million and 1,000 data analysts working for you, the resources were unlimited, what would your report look like? What would you actually see on a screen? Mm-hmm. That their answer was so far off anything that's been created or anything that they've ever asked for. And it was simply like, well, a big thing for us is actually, we want to know who's going to no longer be a gold member. And I was like, yep. Oh, okay. So, well, that's never come up before in 1,000 of your, tickets that have come in. And this whole idea here about something that was actually very easy to create. And this exercise I've done many times. Another example is I always go to these pain points on what would keep you up at night. And there's a whole workshop around that.
Yep.
It's the same numbers, Mike. And we're dealing with the same numbers, but I'm understanding the data literacy in their world, not just in, hey, we're meeting 80% of goal. That's fine. But that's not the data. That's not me understanding as the data analyst what's going to impact them and how they actually are interpreting the numbers, because that's the big difference here. So that's where I'm turning this on its head.
But I'd argue that conversation you're having, all you're doing is teasing out additional metrics that they don't even know they needed, right? Yeah. So in the first one you're talking about, like, look, how many of our members are going to downgrade from gold to silver? How many members are going to stop subscribing to whatever we're doing? How many members are we going to gain each month based on whatever XYZ marketing activities, right? That's all churn analysis. This is all known stuff. And again, a lot of these things are like, they keep people up.
Okay.
But again, I would go back to the fact that they're asking for just simple reports around what actually happened and what's an expected goal is not actually addressing the real problem. It goes back to my point earlier, which is that's a data literacy issue. Like, we're not able to actually articulate the problem correctly so that we get the right metrics so we can actually look at it. So what should be happening, I can going to keep expanding on your scenario and while you tease this out with them, is the churn analysis is a very well-known thing. And that's a very great thing you can throw towards advanced analytics. Now, to get to the churn analysis, I would argue that's more of an advanced analytical thing, right? That is where the advanced analytics show up. You're doing heavy amounts of statistics. You're doing basket analysis. You're doing what are the characteristics of people that have left or not left. There's a whole bunch of features you need to supply to the statistics model to get that out. And a lot of people will call this AI. People will be like, "Oh, the AI will help." Like that's a machine learning project. Well, yeah, it is, but it's just heavy statistics done at scale, I think. And a lot of times, all you need is a really good statistician to figure out the probability of someone leaving or not leaving. That's really what's happening here. We've just fancied it up with all these words. So for that churn analysis, they know they need it, but they're unable to articulate why, like the report and how it needs to be handled. So my vision of this would be is if you're talking about that with a company, let's put a score on every single individual you have across your whole company. Let's score them all as likelihood of they'll churn, and then produce a list of those items and then action on that. So yeah, you have your standard goals and other things, but you need something in your hands that say, this is the short list of people that we think will churn. It's of our opinion to go directly to them and give them the bonus, the extra thing, the free month, interact with them more, because we know if we interact with them more and they open more of our newsletters, if they go to the website more, that means they're becoming more engaged. So I think you're saying the right thing, Tommy, but I would still argue it's a data literacy gap that you're addressing.
But again, this goes back to my original point, though. It's not their job to come to me and say, we need a churn analysis. That's a data culture. No,
it is their job.
Who's not smart as a sales manager? Sorry, sales managers. But
they know, but that's the point, though. They're not going to do, that's the point. They're not the analytics person.
Right.
If they don't even know what a churn analysis is, then we've got a problem. We've got a different problem, because now we're solving. So now the business is actually, this is again, back to data literacy issues. Like if you have a sales team that's not even thinking about these things, and these aren't even the questions that are keeping them up at night, they're missing the mark. That's not the right person for that position and that role. And what is going to happen, I'm going to guarantee you, because I've seen it a number of times, they're going to focus on all the wrong KPIs. They're going to start hiring more people that produce less and not actually get out real value from their team. So what's going to happen is we're going to put false things in place because we're not actually looking at what's going to solve the problem.
If anyone's listening and your sales manager asks for churn analysis, stay there. You're in a good place. And you're in a very healthy place kind of thing. But I think the point, though, is it was through our conversation that we kind of grew to that. And I think, again, the data literacy, I didn't know that the churn analysis was important to them. It came from a conversation. Now I have that knowledge on what impacts them. And I think that's part of the data analyst. So I think the point I'm saying is a lot of times we blame the business for not having data literacy because we're the one building the semantic models, but it's just numbers to us. Like, I don't know what, like that churn analysis, I don't know when a number is at 60% that someone is, vomit or you're like sick to their stomach because the number is at 60%. That to me is data literacy. It's not just, I know how this is calculated. That 60% makes someone sick to their stomach. And I need to know.
That's my point, though. That's the point. This company doesn't have the metrics they need to be able to do their job effectively. That's my point. That's the data literacy part. Like, even if you communicated the churn analysis for a certain number, or you communicated these in different ways, if that business leader can't communicate, like, again, I think the argument here is a lot of business people understand what they need, but they're not able to articulate until they see it.
Such a good point. Stick on
that. So they know what they want, but they're not sure like how to like get the report or the results or like get the information out. So to your point, right, man, if we could just make sure we have more gold people in the level, or we had more, like if we could only take 5% of our silver and bump them up to gold and give them a value add that makes them want to purchase more. Who is that person? What is their persona like? How do we engage them? Like, those are the kind of questions we should be asking. And again, I'd go back to like, this is all like that's that data literacy. It's been able to tie what actions can we do right now to drive actual change in those numbers. So let me go back quick note here real quick. If you go back to what I kind of got formally trained on, which kind of started a lot of my analytics career, I went to this company called Delta Associates, and it wasn't me. It was somebody else who said, everyone on the sales and marketing team will go through this one. And so this is where I form a lot of my opinion around this, right? You need to come in and bring education to your team. And to your point, Tommy, these are salespeople that are directly talking to customers. We're doing analysis. And, the sales team may not actually have the analytics background, but there's someone behind them, an analytics person that's building, grooming, curating the data for the sales team. So we had that front-facing person that's handling the relationship, which would then take needs, requests from the customer, and then bring that back to the analytics team, which is what I was on. But between the analytics team and the sales team, there had to be a really tight coupling of understanding of where the data came from. And when something happened in the market and something was different and sales were down, the numbers were given back to us at the analytics team. And we had to make the assumption of here's why your numbers were up or down. We had to have this really tight understanding. So Delta Associates has this thing called Business Insights. It's called Black Belt Level 1 certification. It wasn't called that initially when I started it, but essentially it's Black Belt Level 1 certification on Business Insights. And it was category management, understanding how your company performs against other companies. And it opened my eyes to, oh my gosh, there's people who are doing really good jobs winning in the category management space. And there are metrics and KPIs that make sense that I didn't even understand existed. And so this is my point, though. My point is there are systems out there in place that is, you need to have, your team all needs to be able to communicate on that same standard, that same wavelength. There needs to be something out there that everyone understands. Hey, we're having a problem with churn analysis. This is important to the business. So there has to be a full education thing, either internally or from an external company, where you're saying, churn is important. Here's the why. Here's why churn is important. And here's what we're going to do about it. And so by having that common understanding across all people on the team, now you can set up a process that actually you can measure. And then you can stand back and say, okay, after doing this process, is this thing helping or hurting? And I really think businesses are in this never-ending game scenario where you just need to try something. If you think something's not working, come up with a good reason as to why you think it's not working, build something new, implement it, roll with it for a number of months, see how it goes, come back, evaluate. Did that work? Do we keep doing it or do we pivot to something else? And I think honestly, just keep trying more and more things until you get to something that is either working, and the market will change out from underneath you. What works today won't necessarily work 6 months from now. But going back to your Jamie Dimon problem earlier, right? I'm going to go back to this one, right? There's some things that are so universal for years, 50 years, hundreds of years, I don't know. Everyone's been looking at this profit and loss thing. It's so universal, it's so fundamental to how businesses are working. It just has to be there. So there's some things that, again, we need to have that basic level understanding of knowledge. We have to start with the very simple printed out profit and loss statement. And then from there, we can build the churn analysis. Then from there, we can build, where's our pain thresholds? What's keeping us up at night? What are these other things that we need to then manage? And we actually have to build out new, business. We have to work that business intelligence muscle. Right, we have to get to a point. Yeah, we have to make data literacy become a part of our culture, and then we can make the better KPIs, and then we can make the better reports to make sure you move the needle.
I'm surprised that didn't break my camera. I know we're at time, so I'm going to give a quick closing thought here. And for me, Mike, I think for the data analyst or our role, it's not enough just to understand the language. If I moved to another country, if I moved to Italy and I took Rosetta Stone, it's not enough just to know the words. I think our job is the interpretation of the slang as well. And I think a lot of organizations, they have ways they interpret things. To your point, Mike, there's a lot of things that we need to try. We need to ask different questions. It's not enough just to build reports and understand the data. I need to understand the person. This goes back to the old adage about empathy. Anything we're going to try, if it goes to advanced analytics, or it's just a building off the current reports, making the simple report impactful. If we don't have the literacy of the team or the business, it's going to be a non-starter. So that is my closing thought. Love the conversation today.
I think when I focus on the communication of data between people on the team, I think I would call that data literacy, right? That's what I would talk here. When I think we talk about advanced analytics to me are things that are not necessarily visual based. They're more of tools, solutions, Python libraries, things that are like more behind the scenes where I can say I can ingest lots of data, do advanced things with it, things that people just can't do normally. And then again, it dovetails back into once the analysis of that is complete or that report is completed, then we have to step back into the data literacy conversation and say, look, these are the results and information. Can we all understand the results and talk about them and have a mutual understanding of, hey, churn is down 3%. That's a good sign. Like, do we even understand that? Churn is up 10%. We should have nervous and be sweating bullets about why this is happening. Let's understand, let's understand the root cause as to why that is occurring. So I think this is a really good conversation. I like the debate here between advanced analytics and data literacy. I think that's kind of where we're going with this one. We'd love your comments and see where you think about data literacy and advanced analytics. Where do those fit in your organization? Do you have it? Do you need more of it? Let us know in the comments down below. Tommy and I will react to the comments as well. With that being said, we appreciate your listenership, and we would love for you to share the podcast, let other people know that you found this conversation valuable and interesting around what you're doing and how you're thinking about Power BI. Tommy, where else can you find the podcast?
You can find us on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. Make sure to subscribe and leave a rating. It helps us out a ton. And please share with a friend, since we do this for free. Do you have a question, idea, or a topic that you want us to talk about in a future episode? Head over to powerbi.tips/podcast. Leave your name and a great question. And finally, join us live every Tuesday and Thursday, 7:30 a.m. Central, and join the conversation on all Power BI Tips social media channels.
Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next time.